This is Sports Talk Podcast. I'm your host, Campbell Dobbin. This is episode 2. And boy, do we have a great guest on today. He has a YouTube channel, a podcast called the Mikey Lewis Podcast. He films, edits, and uploads his videos, I guess you could say, with multiple former celebrities, athletes, and he has reached, I would say, above 25,000 subscribers, I believe. If I'm wrong, I apologize. He is Mike O'Donnell, a good friend. Mike, how are you? Good to see you today, and thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Campbell. It's always an honor and a pleasure to help a friend out and have a talk, chat about topics that are pertaining to things we like. So I look forward to doing this.
So, if I recall, we both share an interest of liking the NFL, and also when we were younger, we had this imaginary tale of wanting to be professional wrestlers and wanting to try out for the WWE, but I guess like the both of us, it couldn't work out for us. So my first question in regards to wrestling in WWE is, how did you get into wrestling? What caught your eye about it? And any wrestlers in particular from the past or present now just like caught your eye, and how did that make you feel as a kid to see that joy in watching your favorite wrestlers perform?
Well, Campbell, obviously, there's been, different generations of wrestling. You've had your Attitude Era, Ruthless Aggression, and like more so PG now. But even back a ways during like the days of, Hulk Hogan, Roddy Piper, Jimmy Snuka, Andre the Giant. My, father and his grandfather, or his father rather, grew up watching that. So my dad kind of was instilled that from and passed on it from his father, and he kind of just passed it on to me. So from a young age, I was pretty much, bred into, watching, wrestling through, my dad had like DVDs of, old pay-per-views and shows. And, he would get me like all the action figures. I used to collect like all the action figures. Still have them up in my basement, dude. There's like over thousands of them, yeah, it kind of started from there. And, they had like for the people that, remember, they had like what was called like the 24/7 WWE program that they had on demand. Shout out On Demand. That was Netflix before Netflix was Netflix. So
It was amazing. I used to
right,
I used to go on it all the time in 24. I used to like watch like little like snippets of stuff, WWE or like other sports in general, but most of all like 24/7 stuff was just amazing. Like it like brings so much nostalgia for like us now, because like you said, like like watch Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior, Andre the Giant, Ric Flair, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, and like the Hart Foundation later coming on. It's so amazing how like like the late 80s into early 90s like helped like signify this sort of generation as like the past generations in professional wrestling, of those who watched before us, and they would tell stories, and it's great. I remember my father, he told me when George Animal Steel would bite the turnbuckle with his teeth, or he watched Yokozuna, or see Ultimate Warrior or Divine X, and it's just amazing how like the stories like he and other people have told just like get brought to us, and I think it's so cool.
yeah, man, it's definitely a cool thing. But I'd say growing up that although it's like the cliche thing to say, and obviously if I had more of a pull in it, it probably wouldn't be the case. But I'd say growing up, because Hulk Hogan, there's obviously always been like a big name of like each generation. Had like Hogan during like that era. Cena has been like basically the face from like, ruthless aggression through the beginning of PG era. So it's like really easy to pick those guys to like I guess root for and like have them as your favorite. I remember always on the old WWE video games, I would make my dad play the Royal Rumble and tell him to pick Hulk Hogan every time, and play against I would always win because I was too scared to play myself. But yeah, I in terms of like people growing up that were like my favorites. Just from like off first glance, I mean, Hulk Hogan was someone that I went through my phase of liking. Obviously, John Cena at points that grew out of that fast. I mean, I was John Cena for Halloween in fourth grade. So, but I grew out of that, and was able to like and follow wrestlers that I actually enjoyed for like what they were, not from like a promotional standpoint. Because I feel like at a young age, we're more inclined to root for guys like Hogan and Cena who are promoted more by the company and are like it's almost like a bandwagon effect. You ever have like a real like the New England Patriots? Like it's easy to latch on to a team like that, or like LeBron and NBA. But dude, when I tell you I became a huge fan of Dolph Ziggler, back when I was in sixth grade, I've always felt, and even before then, when he first came in, I know he had his little
The
silly
Spirit
like
Squad.
he was a spirit squatter before then, but when he first came in, repackaged, I think in what was it, '09, and he had that whole introducing himself gimmick. He was always been the full package, dude. And call me crazy, but if booked right, he could have been, or would have been the modern day Shawn Michaels, in my opinion. And he's definitely been wrong done, I feel, but his cash in, dude, the night after 29, I was at that Mania the night before.
Me too.
All the people were chanting, "We want Ziggler" during the Del Rio Swagger title match, want him to cash in after, and then he ends up doing it the night before. Honestly, that's, in my opinion, top three, cash-ins aside from the original Edge one and Seth Rollins.
So I know. I mean, I look at Dolph Ziggler now, and he's like one of the hardest working wrestlers in the company. And I remember hearing those chants, "We want Ziggler, we want Ziggler," and at WrestleMania 29, I was probably up in the 300s hearing that all the way through the whole arena, stadium. And the night after, and uh, I mean, you could tell at the place we call Izot Center that is now closed, formerly Continental, formerly Brandon Burn Arena, named after former governor. And once his music hit, and you hear the lyrics, I hear the show, you can hear the biggest pop in the world come from an area in New Jersey called the Meadowlands, aka the swamps of Jersey, just like beating down on on the whole like, and everyone knew it was gonna happen that night. He was gonna get booked to win the title, and of course, like it's probably one of the best moments in that decade. And like you said, I no one thought Rollins was gonna cash in that night because everyone thought Lesnar was gonna put Reigns over, and it was like that. And then once you heard his theme go, you can hear you can see the first row of fans look, and they had their hands up and they're like in disbelief. And I remember it was either I remember watching a YouTube video. It was Edge's, I believe, first or second cash in. I loved both of them because the first one was in New Year's resolution. Revolution. I'm sorry, and he, it's like Edge. It's like that your persona. Like you're meant to hate him. It's John Cena. He just survived the elimination chamber. He's all busted open and stuff, and all you see is the evil Mr. McMahon walk up with the purpose on that stage, and all you hear is "You think you know me," and everyone just goes absolutely stunned. And Edge like that sadistic way just hands the boss the briefcase and he's walking down the ramp and he literally gives two spears and that's it. He wins the championship. And the other one I remember is when he cashes in to win the World Heavyweight Championship on SmackDown after Mark Henry came in and absolutely beat the crap out of the Undertaker and stuff. And he won it and that's lived by his nickname as the ultimate opportunist that night. And I think that could be one of the best moments I believe in WWE. I love cash-ins because you never know what's gonna happen. And I mean, and also could you like go on like I I would like want to ask you like what is the best moment you've seen on TV now and or live if you ever seen the best moment live?
So like for me, in person or just me watching like as it was,
Either
happening.
either or.
Well, that was definitely a big one with the Ziggler cash in, as we just, previously alluded to. Another big one was actually had something to do with Ziggler as well. Is when Sting made his debut in the 2014 Survivor Series elimination match, because obviously spoilers and things like that were like huge things, still are, but I don't know, for some reason I don't really recall ever stumbling across any reports of Sting potentially signing with WWE or appearing at the show, so I was pretty much blind to it. And then to have what was essentially like a real life thing with a 3-on-1 three members left of Authority left, and just Ziggler, who it was almost like real life storytelling with, it's like the odds are stacked against Ziggler with like the Authority, which is actually the case behind the scenes with Ziggler, them not giving him a push. So it was almost like a real life thing playing out, and it's like eating at me a bit because I am like, this is my favorite guy, and I'm just like, oh, here we go again. He's just gonna like, lose, and swear to see the same thing play out with them basically giving us, false hope with Ziggler, and then to have Sting show up in of itself, and then Ziggler to also win was huge. The streak ending, I watched that live. When that happened, man, I was in just utter, like, I legitimately was so accustomed to, having watched so many Undertaker streak matches live in my day, to where it actually happened, to where I legit was just sitting there. I didn't really react because I legitimately, even though you see it's a clear cut 1, 2, 3, I was like, for some reason in my mind and head, it didn't process that it was 3, and I legitimately thought it was like a 2 count or something, or that, like, I don't know, like I was just like, wait, what? Like, this is just not happening right now. So those are some things that come to mind. I also got pretty excited over the Hardy Boys coming back at WrestleMania 33, so that was big too. But yeah.
Yeah, I remember looking at WWE.com that WrestleMania 30, and my first instinct was like, no, this can't be right. This can't be right. This can't be right. And I'm looking on Twitter and stuff back in the day when like it's like starting to like be like crazy. And I just like I was crying because like I never really thought it would happen. And it's funny because you look at like a 13-year-old kid cry because his favorite wrestler's streak is over. And I think that's solidified towards like the end of his run because we knew he was 50 years old at that he was gonna be 50 years old at that time, and like he started to become part-time 2 years prior after that amazing, or I should say 3 years prior, that first match with Triple H and WrestleMania 27, and then the year later, end of an era happened. I watched that at a friend's house, and I couldn't believe it too. I thought Triple H was going to end the streak, but I think it was. They said that a 4-year storyline, 2 matches with Shawn, 2 matches with Hunter. It was just that was a good storyline. And then you had the Punk match where we were at. That was a great storyline because Punk at the time, he recently lost the championship with the 400-day reign. He was that the biggest heel at the time. He was looking to wrestle somebody, and unfortunately had the passing of Paul Bearer at that time, and then they made and put that into a storyline, I guess, and then they wrestled the Undertaker, and then that was that. So I think that was probably one of the coolest, like not coolest, but like one of the most like important storylines I've seen over the past decade. But I think my favorite moment now is when Kofi Kingston got that huge push last year, and he finally climbed the mountaintop. Danny Bryan put him over, and he won the championship at WrestleMania. And when I tell you, I watched probably week after week after week of him technically being like profiled, I guess, because like in the storyline, he this and that, he's not fit to be champion, this and that, and he got a match with the match, like saying, "Oh, you're not worthy to be champion. You're still just a mid Carter and stuff." And then for him to finally reach that mountaintop and become champion, and he's like the loudest ovation I've ever seen watching on TV. And I remember looking at Byron Saxton, the commentator, like you could hear like the in his voice because him as an African American finally getting an African American WWE champion. Well, not really that a WWE champion, but I guess it's WWE champion. In the fact that like something good has happened for the company, and it had a massive ovation, like just for the whole build up to that match.
Right.
So I know we've talked a little bit, bunch about WWE, this and that. So week ago, I guess a week ago, the last ride, chapter 5, I guess, and there was a huge cliffhanger, I guess you could say, with the last few minutes of it. The man known as the Dead Man, the Phenom, Lord of Darkness, Prince of Darkness, Big Evil, any nickname we could give him. He's been there for 30 years. He's literally our childhood. The Undertaker, we believe, and there's no whole crap about it. He has announced his retirement from wrestling. Personally, it pains me to realize that he is not probably going to wrestle anymore because he's up there in age. He's 55. He's done anything and everything he did for the business. He's one of the most respected guys in the company. He was a locker room man for all those years. He made stars. He put people over. He gave back to what he thought was good for the company. He was so loyal for all those years. I want you to pick a moment about The Undertaker that caught your attention as a kid, and what's like the best thing about The Undertaker, his character wise, that made you think he is probably the best wrestler of all time? And would you put him on a wrestling Mount Rushmore with all those greats as well?
Wow. Yeah, when you think about, particular moments, man, there's a lot that could come to mind. Um when I first really started, like, I guess you could say, taking like a huge liking to the Undertaker was during like his three-way feud with Batista and Edge. Because like as a kid, I always kind of like feared him in a way, you know what I mean? So yeah, once I started liking him, was around that time with Batista and Edge when they were all feuding for the belt. I wasn't a huge. I was always like, doing like the stereotypical thing, which was, root against the heel and hope that like he gets like his comeuppance in a way. So I was like hoping that Undertaker could, seek out and, exact revenge on Edge for, cashing in on him while he was all bloody and beat up. Yeah, that his feud with Kane at multiple occasions with Kane were all great, but I'd say like honestly my favorite feud that I've seen him in was probably the one with Orton. I think that the storytelling there was magnificent, and I think they did a fine job with that, and they made both of them look really, strong coming out of that, and it's one of those rare moments in WWE when you kind of capitalize on the momentum of both guys, and both of them come out strong and nobody gets hurt out of the situation.
I always thought, what's more scarier as a kid, seeing your favorite team lose or looking at the Undertaker closing the door of the Hell in a Cell and him rolling his eyes and the fire shooting up, or either him like rolling his eyes, raise his hand up, hearing the sound of thunder and lightning. That was scary as a kid, because you as a kid, you would roll your eyes, you would do the throat slash, you would do a signature pose as a kid, because like you like were so invested into him, because he was something else. He wasn't like, oh, this and that. It's a character that's supposed to be dead, an old Western cowboy that's literally like unborn, dead, I guess. And he, like, for him to involve like multiple personas as well with the corporate ministry. Please excuse me, because before I did not mention about like clean stuff, American Badass. I apologize for saying that, but that persona, because it was him in real life, him from Texas, Houston, Texas. He's a Texas boy in real life. Mark Calloway. He's from that area, and for him in the motorcycle with the American flag and stuff, the bandana coming out the Limp Biscuit, and that was a whole different side. But like you said, the whole Orton rivalry in 2005 when Orton's father, Cowboy Bob Orton, was involved, when he hit him with the cast, or back at SummerSlam when Orton technically won clean 1, 2, 3, and then the fan came in and ultimately it was Cowboy Bob Orton, or like I mentioned, the Hell in a Cell match at Armageddon where the famous picture of him, or video, I guess, of him closing the door, and that strikes fear in your eyes. Like your eyeballs are like open wide, and like you're like, oh crap, like this is actually happening. Like Randy Orton's wrestling the Undertaker. He is about to get his comeuppance for being the bad guy that he is. So, I mean, it's really crazy that like he's just like done, I guess you could say, and but it's good. So to move off upon that, and I want to talk about another wrestler that has caught my attention because she is one of the best wrestlers in the indie scene or professional wrestling in a way. She is the daughter of Tully Blanchard, who is a WWE Hall of Famer with the one and only Four Horsemen, and she is Tessa Blanchard. And I am a big fan of Tessa Blanchard, not only because her in-ring work is impeccable, because I think she gets it because she's just amazing in a way, and like her in-ring ability, because like her character is like she don't take crap from anybody. She's fearful. She doesn't have an ounce of fear in her. She's willing to take anybody, any challenge and stuff. And she has been away with her husband in Mexico, and ultimately she was stripped of her Impact World Championship and ultimately fired, which is very shocking because it was 2 o'clock in the morning, Friday, 2 o'clock in the morning. I DM'd you on Instagram telling her that her title was stripped and she was ultimately fired. I need your reaction on this because this is really unexpected because her situation of in another country and stuff. And there's big rumors saying that she said no to giving promos to send to the Impact writers and producers. But I want to give your thoughts on like what Tessa Blanchard has like been to each like going to each company and how like big of a star she is and where could she go from here because now she's a free agent.
Well, obviously, it's undeniable, her in-ring ability and like what she brings to the table, regardless of her standing and whether she's champ or not, or whatever company she's in. She's one of those talents that comes along where it's kind of just like in her blood in a way. As far as the situation, from what I read, it's a little misleading. There's details that don't add up, in a way, and it's a little puzzling. But if I'm Tessa, from what I read, she's looking to. Didn't it say something about her not wanting to travel back from Mexico
Yeah,
because like
I
was
guess so.
it had something to do with the virus, right?
Yeah, but it's funny because like isn't there like not really like travel restrictions coming back into the US from Mexico? And then like people are like telling stories about her like not being very like nice or like very thoughtful in the backstage area or behind the scenes. Her like being very like demanding, I guess, because like I don't know, she I guess like I don't want to be like argumentative. I don't think she's very privileged because she's the daughter of a Hall of Famer. She works extremely hard and she busts her but night in and night out to deliver good showing for fans around the world and who are watching on television. So I think it's very difficult to see like a big star like her now be out of a job and not knowing where she can go.
Yeah, I mean, whatever she ultimately, decides to do, and whatever her reasoning is for, not allegedly sending promos or, coming back or showing up. I heard something about, her looking to get married. I mean, that's completely, her prerogative. She's a, grown woman, and it's her personal life ultimately. But, you know, and in TNA's or Impact's case, it's ultimately a business. So if you're not getting your money's worth, then I guess cut ties while you can. So it's gonna be interesting to see where she goes from here. I could see her going to AEW.
Yeah, I think I consider going there too because I'm not too big on the women's division in AEW. I watched it a bit, and it's not really something huge for AEW's women's division. I mean, you look at the NXT women's division, that it's huge. I mean, they're very talented, but I think more could be invested in the women's division when the time is right, I guess, to have a big star come from an indie scene to work with the wrestlers and make it more stronger. So I know we want to talk about football and stuff, but there's one other person that I've told you about that has caught my eye since he's left Impact and come to WWE and he's now in NXT. He is probably one of the most courageous wrestlers I've ever seen because his in-ring talent and character persona is impeccable. And I think you might know who I'm talking about. Karrion Kross, formerly known as Killer Kross in Impact, and who is now with his wife Scarlett Bordeaux in NXT. And I'm going to tell you this: he is going to be a megastar if they book him right. Why do I say that? Because his in-ring ability is second to none. He's probably one of the most athletic guys for a guy that's his size. And him being this psychotic guy character, like that persona, is like we haven't had that in years in WWE. And without a doubt, I would love to see him get a big push, and hopefully he gets called up probably next year because he deserves that right. Because like you look at him, like doing matches, like he's I saw literally he faced Bronson Reed the other day, and he gave him a suplex like it was nothing, and he was literally no sell. He was literally no selling it, and no selling chops. It was just amazing. His
Yeah.
him in general is like the perfect wrestler, and I want your thoughts on Cross, and of course like him working his wife on not his wife, his girlfriend on screen, and how that is going to like how that's going to change in the future, not change in the future, but like how them working together is better for NXT going forward.
Well, yeah, I couldn't have, said it any better myself. What you just said. It all comes down to, how they ultimately book him. But yeah, there's no doubt about it. The guy's megastar and deserves, what he should get. As far as, him with his, wife or, on screen, those, storylines can get a little tricky. It's more of a hit and miss, you know, um, with like a, male with a female, by his side as we've seen in the past. You know, I'd say in this case, it might pay dividends, just because of like, who, who he is as a, wrestler and performer, to where I feel like anything that he's involved with, can make it work. So that's pretty much my stance on it.
That's really good. So now we will set aside the world of professional wrestling into the National Football League. And Mike, I know I see your banner pennant in the back, the Super Bowl 40 champion Seattle Seahawks, the members of the National Football Conference West Division, and with a division that has the runner-up of the Super Bowl, as in the San Francisco 49ers. How do you think this division will be with the Niners, the Rams, of course, the Cardinals, and your Seahawks? And how can the Seahawks, or should I say, what like got you into Seahawks as a kid? Was it the Legion of Boom? Was it Sean Alexander back in the day with Matt Hasselbeck in the backfield? Or the Beastquake, of course, against the Saints with Marshawn Lynch going absolutely AWOL on the Rams on the Saints defense. But like, is there like a huge like upbringing to you as a Seahawks fan, or any memory that you had in your ring?
So actually, the story is quite interesting. So I actually only got into football when I was in fourth grade. So at that point, I actually played football like in the Pee-wees before I actually started watching the NFL. I didn't start seriously watching the NFL towards the tail end or middle to tail end of the 2010 season, which was ultimately the one that the Packers beat the Steelers that season. But those playoffs was actually when, I started watching when Marshawn Lynch, my first ever playoff game in the NFL I've ever watched was the Marshawn Lynch Seahawks and Saints game run, the wild card round. And so that kind of gave me like a big dose to, fight into in a way. But yeah, I know all about like Matt Hasselbeck and Sean Alexander. I think they kind of got a little bit of a raw end of the deal in that Super Bowl they versed the Steelers in with the officiating. But no, to be completely quite honest, Campbell, my house growing up was, all Dallas Cowboys, and in my family, majority of them. So I was kind of bred into that, just I got instilled that from a young age. But once I grew older, I kind of branched off. So I became a fan of the Seahawks towards the end of Russell Wilson's rookie season, right? So I liked Russell Wilson. I liked the new uniforms they had. They were really flashy. I liked them when they first came out, and I liked the makeup of the team at the time. They were young, gritty, scrappy, and very defensive and physical oriented. You had Earl Thomas, Cam Chancellor, Sherman. Those are the Legion of Boom guys. I was like kind of like the heart and soul of the team. But you had Marshawn Lynch, who kind of was like that. He was kind of the guy that got everybody up and like motivated. Because if you see him dragging bodies left and right every play, that gives the defense extra fuel to want to show up and play. Russell Wilson was young at the time, so he didn't really have to do a whole lot in the early stages of his career to really carry them. It wasn't until basically his like fourth year in the league that was when he really started coming into his own as a passer. But yeah, that's kind of when I started becoming a Seahawk fan. And, I got the occasional like whole bandwagon thing thrown at me when they won the Super Bowl my first full year as a fan. So I was like, all right, like sure thing. But, I think that the Seahawks last year, I don't really care what anybody says. We swept the Niners in my eyes. We beat them the first time. The second time, we got a raw end of the deal on that with like some missed call and then like that whole thing at the goal line. But, injuries shot us down towards the end of last season, man. We had Josh Gordon get suspended again. All our running backs got hurt. We had offensive linemen getting hurt. It was just a mess, dude. And I honestly feel like, dude, because we were really coming into our own before the injuries, and I think most people would agree with me when I say this. I say if we had at least, a proper running back group, at the very minimum, we beat Green Bay in the divisional round. We were this close, dude. So in my eyes, we at least were NFC. A few injuries, and and honestly, even with the injuries, we still could have or should have arguably won that game in Green Bay. Is what it is, but we were fairly close to playing in San Francisco for an NFC title, and could have very well took it. Considering, in my eyes, I say we have the Niners number. The last how many seasons we played them, majority of the times we beat them, they might have beaten us like once or twice out of the last 12 times we played them. So. As far as the division goes, I'm excited, man. I think the Cardinals made a lot of moves, and they always seem to have our number for some reason whenever it's in Seattle. So we always have tough games with them. So they're definitely, by all accounts, a threat. They drafted Isaiah Simmons, which I feel is a little bit of a, big pickup and a little bit of a steal. I'm surprised he fell to them. DeAndre Hopkins speaks for itself. That's the biggest steal of the offseason. So they're definitely going to be a tough out, maybe even a sleeper playoff team. I like our odds getting our guys that were hurt back. We picked up Greg Olson, who is a little past his prime, but I feel like now with a steady quarterback and in this situation where he doesn't have to be like the prime year go-to guy like how he was Carolina a little bit in the passing game for those years, he could be like a pretty solid addition to us. our defense isn't great, but we're a little scrappy. It's going to be interesting to see if, Jadeveon Clowney cracks or not, comes back to us. The Niners are always going to be tough. They got a pretty good coaching staff, tough defense. They can really run the ball and pound you. What scares me with the Niners, aside from George Kittle, man, they lost Emmanuel Sanders, who is their number one receiver, but Deebo Samuel really showed promise as a wide receiver one, but he just broke his foot recently. So that wide receiver room is looking a little, not so intimidating right now. So, yeah, that's my stance on them. And as far as the Rams go, dude, they're in the same boat for me as the Houston Texans. I think they're the Texans of the NFC, and I think they're going to finish last in that division, to be quite honest. I'm not too afraid of them at all. But I'll let you, take the floor.
So, yeah, like you said, that game in Seattle, what was Pete Carroll thinking, taking that delayed game penalty? You literally had Marshawn Lynch in the backfield. Couldn't give him another touchdown. Ultimately, you go 2 straight passing plays, and then I believe it's a passing or some kind of penalty
There was a
flag got
non-call.
thrown, non-call. But you had the game won anyway before those 2 plays happened, and ultimately Pete Carroll takes a game penalty, and it's funny. Like Pete Carroll, he's a good coach, but at the most particular time, he can't get it done. What happened in Super Bowl 49 was atrocious. What happened in that game was literally atrocious because it was the same thing. It was the same scenario. Like you guys are playoff bound anyway. You could have literally won the division because that division was like wide open during the last 2 weeks of the season, and you let the 49ers clinch on their home field, which is pretty crazy because I was screaming at the TV saying, "What are you doing? This cannot happen. You're supposed to run. Give your running back the ball." The guy that has carried the franchise came back and helped your team come to the playoffs because your running backs were hurt all year. And as far as like the 49ers go, they're still going to be good. The Cardinals, they'll be okay this year. I believe so. And the Rams, I'm not too high on the Rams this year, like you said. And it stinks because I had to see all 4 of those NFC West teams come play my New York Football Giants. And let me tell you something about the Giants. A lot of people are writing them off this year because of the moves that GM Dave Gettleman has made. And I'm telling you this right now. I said the other day he had a good draft, but I might have to recorrect myself, saying he said he had a great draft because we got an offensive tackle that is very good and Andrew Thomas. We got Cam Brown from late in I believe the 3rd round from Penn State. We got the steal Xavier McKinney, a safety from Alabama. And we have a young, gritty defense. We have a whole new coaching staff. Joe Judge makes you want to run through a wall when he talks. We're gonna run the Dallas Cowboy defense literally with former head coach Jason Garrett. We're gonna have a whole new defense package, and it's funny because our kicker Alger Rosas had an off-field issue, and we don't know if he's going to be released or fined or suspended. But there's one guy that has been itching to get back onto an NFL field, and he's kicker Steven Gostkowski, formerly of the New England Patriots. And my thought is, oh, Gostkowski, he was coached by Joe Judge, special teams guy. And Joe Judge, he was on the same staff at Alabama, Belichick staff, the Patriots. This guy knows how to win, and he knows how to do it fundamentally. And I'm very excited with the Giants this year. People say that they're gonna make the playoffs as a wild card or not make the playoffs to have an okay season. And I think it's gonna be fun. So And like you said, you grew up with Cowboy fans in your family, and you're a Seahawks fan. Imagine you were a Giants fan, how much heckling you must have got. Listen to Cowboys fans saying, "We got 5 world championships. We're America's team." And like I say to all my Cowboy friends and fans, it's gonna be the same thing. You're either gonna win the division by going 9-7 or 8-8, or you'll also be lose the division by the second to last week of the year because the Eagles suddenly wake up and Carson Wentz is just throwing balls from all over the place. And it's pretty spectacular. And I'm looking at the Redskins this year. I'm not too fond of the Redskins. Yeah, they got chased on Terry McLaurin, Dwayne Haskins. It's like Ohio State all over again. But it's funny because the Giants got free agent deals with Austin Mack, Benjamin Victor, both wide receivers from Ohio State and stuff. But what do you like? I know like you probably know a lot of people who are Giants fans or Jets fans or Cowboys or Eagles fans. Do you have like any thoughts on those teams, like how like they're gonna be good this year because their divisions are like a little bit wide open. You have the AFC North with the Ravens, the Browns, the Bengals. Then you got the the AFC East, in which Jets fans are verbally saying to me and everybody that they will win the division, and I'm saying no because there's a team in upstate New York that literally almost beat the Patriots last year, and they should have done it, and they should have beat the Texans last year because the Texans, we all know, they can't save a playoff game for their lives, and that team's called the Buffalo Bills, led by quarterback Josh Allen. And what are your thoughts on those teams this year going into the season? Because we might even not know if we have a season yet.
Yeah, man, it's definitely everything's up in the air as far as whether or not we have a season. But as far as I could just get right into just my full analysis right here and predictions rapid fire and just kind of answer it all. As far as like the Jets thing goes, I'm just gonna go division by division what I think right now. Yeah, as you just said, I think Buffalo is gonna be a force this year. They have most of their defense, which is phenomenal, back. They're all young. Like you said, they should have beat New England arguably twice last year. The Texan game with another case of what they should have won. They got most of their team coming back. They picked up Stephon Diggs, who's a true number one receiver on the outside, which was huge. So now they got him and John Ross on the outside, and then you got Cole Beasley underneath. So that's huge. So I think Buffalo, I actually have them winning that division. I think they're third in the American Football Conference seeding wise, and I don't see another team in the AFC East making the playoffs. As far as the North goes, Baltimore, the rich keeps getting richer. Obviously, they're 0-2 in the playoffs the last 2 years under Lamar, but there's no denying their talent and team makeup. They got arguably the most loaded roster in the NFL, so they've got to be number one in the AFC North. I can't put them over Kansas City yet, though, because they haven't been able to beat them. And, respect is always due to the Super Bowl champs. I think that Mahomes is definitely way more clutcher than Lamar. And Kansas City's got 20 out of their 22 starters back, so I have them actually going back-to-back. But, I have them as number one in the AFC. So I would have them as one and Baltimore as two and Buffalo as three. As far as a wild card team, though, coming out of the AFC North, I have Pittsburgh. I think that they have a very underrated and talented defense. And, Big Ben, some of the offense is back healthy, so that's a plus. So I'd see them, because there's 7 teams that make it now. So I see them possibly as like a 6, I'd say, making it. And in the South, man, That's going to be a tough one. I don't think the Texans are going to be all too good. I don't see them making it. And I think Jacksonville is going to have the worst record in the league. So that would all come down to Tennessee and Indianapolis, to be quite honest. Tennessee obviously went on that Cinderella run at the end of last year, and I think that they're a very, well coached and, tough team. But they did lose their right tackle and, traded away their D tackle for a 7th-round pick to Denver. So that's, a little confusing and puzzling to me. So I actually, believe it or not, have Indianapolis winning that division and getting the 4 seed because I think Phillip Rivers is a big addition. Their running back room just got better. They had some more receiver help. Their offensive line's great. So I think you give Phillip Rivers arguably the best O-line he's had in his career. And this could, be the makings of something good this year for Indianapolis. But I have Tennessee as my wild card at the 5th slot, Pittsburgh as the 6th. And believe it or not, dude, I have Denver actually as my last wild card in the AFC.
I'm very high on the Broncos this year. Not because of Drew Lock, because of who they got at the wide receiver core. That's going to be very scary. And they might play spoiler for those AFC West teams now.
They might, man. You never know. It's going to be interesting to see. I think that what they tried to do was, add some speedsters on the outside to kind of match what KC has going on. And their defense been like top 10 consistently. They just haven't really had the offense to help them out. So I'd say Denver's getting that 7th seed. But as far as the NFC goes, I'm very high in New Orleans this year, man. They brought back Malcolm Jenkins at safety and went out and finally got what they needed opposite of Michael Thomas, which was another solid outside receiver, and they got that. Emmanuel Sanders.
Another Ohio State guy.
Yeah. So this is it's good. I think Saints are be the number 1 team to beat in the NFC. I think Green Bay is going to take a dip. I didn't like their offseason. I don't think they really addressed any needs. And as much as I want to pick the Seahawks to win the division, I definitely still have them making the playoffs. But, like I said, with the Chiefs, respect is, given. And whether I like them or not, I got to give respect to the Niners and what they're due. So I could still put them as the, West champs there. So I'd probably plug them in as the number 2 slot. And then from there, it gets quite tricky. I actually, believe it or not, have the Dallas Cowboys winning the NFC East and getting the 3rd
I respect
seed.
that.
Because I think that their offense is going to be scary, man. And I think Mike McCarthy is what they lacked with Jason Garrett. I'd put Minnesota as my 4. I think that maybe, losing Stephon Diggs was a little tricky, but they definitely made up for it in the, had a really good draft. So, and as far as, wild cards go for the NFC, Seattle, obviously, you throw in the mix. It's hard to count out Green Bay because of Rodgers, but I think a sleeper playoff team this year, man, believe it or not, might be the Falcons. I've been hearing a lot of people talking about it, and honestly, I can't really deny it. They went their last 7 games or something like that. They went 5-2 or something like that, and they beat the Saints and Niners down the stretch, both in their building. So it's hard to deny. And
That's really good. I mean, like you said, the Cowboys, they're going to be very scary in offense this year. And with Mike McCarthy now, and I believe so, Kellen Moore, which I arguably see the greatest college football quarterback of all time just because of his record. But as a quarterback's coach and offensive coordinator, I think really the Cowboys are going to be the team to beat in the NFC East. And the possibly NFC, I guess, if the Falcons do play spoiler to the Saints, I guess. I mean, the Saints have been robbed, cheated, whatever you want to call it. So we're going to wrap it up here on the Sports Talk podcast. Michael, thank you again for coming on today, talking about our two favorite things growing up as kids. Talking about, doing entrances, moves on our bunk beds, I guess. Playing with action figures, THQ games back in the day, playing on the Xbox 360 and whatnot. Then hopefully shifting over to football and the coronavirus and how it's changing the football scenery and stuff, and what to look forward from these teams. And I appreciate you again, and I'll give you a little bit of time for any final thoughts.
Yeah, man, it was a pleasure in coming on here and having a little bit of a change of the guard. I've been so used to talking about the challenge, what seems like the last 2 months. So it was definitely cool to step into a realm that I was previously used to, and getting to chat with you, man. And I hope whoever watches this loves and can resonate with what we were saying. And this was a ton of fun.
Thank you. Make sure to go check out his YouTube channel, Mike Lewis podcast, and it's really interesting. He takes an hour or hour and 10 minutes of his time, gets into contact with these amazing people from multiple channels who used to be these big celebrities, and asks them a bunch of great questions. And it's pretty amazing to see what he's doing now, what I'm doing, and it's pretty amazing. So again, this is the Sports Talk Podcast with Campbell Davin. That was Mikey Oniano, aka Mikey Lewis Podcast. Remember, everybody, sports is the beacon of light and the beacon of hope. Do something today, tomorrow. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever. Have a good day today. Thank you again for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Please follow Sports Talk Podcast on Instagram and Twitter. More updates will be coming along. And on Monday, we will have a special guest that will be announced in a certain amount of time. And thank you again. That is all.